every morning people wake up in Asia and they're trying to figure out what in the world just went on in the US. They've been asleep for the last 7-8 hours, during which time any number of tweets may have been put out there by the president to try and, impact policies of all sorts. This is a White House where major policy decisions are taken in 140 characters. And so I think that there's a lot of uncertainty over in Asia. I don't think that people have been used to dealing with administrations that quite work like this. Many previous administrations have been maybe a little bit more deferential, maybe a little bit more tactical and long-term sort of plays, whereas this one is very blunt. And I think that that's a very different thing than a lot of folks are used to. So I think there's a lot of folks over here who are kind of learning what's going on. But by the same juncture, Asia is not very widely understood in the United States as compared to maybe some other places, Canada, Mexico, Europe. And so there's a lot of learning that's going on over there. There's a big language barrier, even down to the characters not being the same. And so I think that there are two sides that are desperately trying to understand each other right now in a really critical moment. I think that a lot of people initially didn't quite know what to make of it. There were some threats that maybe sounded like they were just threats, just some empty talk. And people knew that President Trump was somebody who would, say things like lock her up and not, actually send police to somebody's house, So there was a certain discounting, I think. Those days, I think, are pretty much over at this point. I think people know that the American president means business on trade. This is somebody who has thought the same way that he's expressing now about China, has thought this for many, many years now. And even before he was in politics. And I think people are coming around to that understanding. Well, the first thing that I look at with President Trump's tweets is I have to see them. And I'm in breaking news, so I need to see them before everyone else. So what happens is I get the alert to my phone that I think most people do. But every single time that the president tweets, I get a message, I get a pop-up on my screen, and I get a robotic voice literally reading it out to me word for word. Because I've got to know right now what it is. And we're talking about he might say something that cancels the entire trade tension between the U.S. and Mexico that he started a couple of weeks previously. He did that via tweet. And when the peso markets reopened, when people started trading the peso again, it jumped by 2%. That means if you had, whatever you had in Mexico, if you were there, suddenly you were 2% richer than you had been before, after 2 weeks before being 2% poorer when the initial threat was put out. So just because you know that there's going to be big stuff in there, not everything, not nearly everything, but some of that stuff is really, really going to make an impact. It's going to move markets. It's going to change the way that you think about the world and about how the U.S. is addressing the world. You got to know instantly. So I think that's one. The other thing I think is pretty key about the president's tweets is you don't just go and knee-jerk kick everything out. What you have to do is you have to take that reporter's mind, that editor's mind, that years and years and years of Washington policy reporting or of political reporting that many people have and have built up, and you have to apply that critical mind to it. You have to treat it like it's an input, like it's a politician telling you something, and then apply the usual sort of filters that you do there. Take your news judgment, apply the news judgment. Is this real? Is this relying on something that's not quite right? Is this a threat? Is he being sarcastic? Is this a real order? Is this somebody spitballing? Those are all things that I think are nuances in the English language that maybe some more literal languages it doesn't pick up as well. But that's where the audience is counting on you as a journalist to be able to take what you know and help them make sense of it, help them be smarter about what they're all seeing.